Hello, my name is Dr. Corey Nyquist. I am an aquatic entomologist on the Bugs Below Zero project here at the University of Minnesota. And the following video that you're going to see is a recording of a webinar that we did on aquatic insects, looking at some live aquatic insects collected from streams in the Midwest here. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about what some of these different insects are, some of their roles in the food web, why they're important for fish, and a little bit about their winter adaptation. So hope you enjoy and learn a lot about aquatic insects. Hi, everybody. I think we're getting started now. So welcome to Microinvertebrate Mania today. My name is Dr. Corey Nyquist. I am an aquatic entomologist here at the Bugs Below Zero program at the University of Minnesota. And my research interests are in aquatic insects, specifically in cold-adapted aquatic insects, ones that can survive in really cold environments and many times are winter active. So not many people are familiar with the fact that certain insects can be active over the winter time, which is really cool. For my dissertation, I studied a family of aquatic flies called midges. These look kind of like mosquitoes. Some of them can be active over the winter time, and I studied midges here in Minnesota streams, as well as in streams in Iceland. And I just love aquatic insects. I'm excited to kind of bring you on a tour of different aquatic insects from around the Midwest here today. And what I love about them is just their diversity. Insects are very diverse in general. Aquatic insects are no different. And they play very important roles in stream food webs. They make up everything from predators to herbivores to animals that eat dead things called detritivores. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that today. And I've always been interested in just the fact that there are insects that can live in the water in lakes and streams just like fish. So, but just as a reminder before we get going today, I'm going to talk for about 15-20 minutes, and then afterwards we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put those in the chat, and we'll get back to those during the Q&A. So here in these different tubs, we have aquatic insects collected from around Stillwater, Minnesota, and some streams in Wisconsin. They were collected just this past week. Some local species that we have around here in the Midwest. And you'll hear me kind of cover a few different terms with these. We have larvae and nymphs, which are both present here in some of my samples. With the larvae, here we have Dobson fly larvae. So larvae are the baby stage or immature stage of aquatic insects that go through complete metamorphosis. So this is the kind of metamorphosis that you see in butterflies, where you have eggs, larvae, pupae, or like the cocoon stage, and then adults. So Dobson flies go through complete metamorphosis, and this is the larval stage. Then we also have nymphs. These are organisms that go through what is called incomplete metamorphosis. And here, for an example, we have a stonefly nymph. And the immature stages of insects that go through incomplete metamorphosis are called nymphs. And this is different from the life cycle that you see in butterflies. There aren't eggs. There are eggs, but there aren't larvae and pupae or the cocoon stage. Instead, there are just these nymphal stages, which kind of look a little bit like immature or like really tiny adults. They have little wing pads, tiny little wings forming, but they will have different body proportions compared to adults, and their wings are obviously non-functional. But they will go through several different molts before they become adults. So that's a nymphal stage. Aquatic insects have several different feeding groups or categories that they are a part of within aquatic stream food webs. And within aquatic stream food webs, we have predators, herbivores, and detritivores, with different groups of insects making up each of these categories. And going over to the Dobson fly larvae again. So these are predators. These are Dobson flies in the order Megaloptera. Sometimes these immature stages of the larvae are called helgramites. And as you can see, they have really large pinchers around their mouths, and they will use that to grasp onto prey and then pierce their prey and feed on them. They will feed on all kinds of different invertebrates, other insects, and are kind of the wolves of the stream. Then we also have different groups of herbivores. One of the first groups are shredders. These are insect groups that will shred leaf material. An example of a shredder we have here is this giant stonefly nymph. This is in the family Pteronarciidae. And these are really, really big, as you can see. We have a penny here to kind of indicate size. And these will shred leaves that fall into streams in the fall, and then feed on the leaf bits, and then also feed on some of the microbes and fungi growing on the leaves. Other groups of herbivores include scrapers, and let's see if I can get some out of here. Have some hiding. So nope, not that one. Right here, we have a tiny little scraper. This is a crawling mayfly in the family Heptageniidae. And as you can see, it's kind of very squat looking. It's kind of crab-like, and these will crawl on rocks that are submerged in the stream, and are typically found in very fast-flowing, ripply areas where the current is very strong. So they're very low profile, helps them to cling to the rocks without getting carried away by the current. And they will use their mouth parts to scrape algae growing on the rocks in the streams. We also have groups of invertebrates called detritivores. These are organisms that feed on dead and decaying organic matter. And one detritivore that we have here is this little swimming mayfly. This is in the family Isoconiidae. Oops, just got away. They are very fast and minnow-like, as you can see. And these actually are called collector filterers or collector gatherers because their front legs have tons of spines, kind of like a comb, and they will hold these in front of their face and then face upstream. And so any sort of organic material that's being swept from upstream will get caught in their legs in that kind of mesh that they create with those spines. And then they will just feed off the material that's caught on their legs. So these are collector filters. Another collector gatherer, collector filter we have is this burrowing mayfly over here. And these actually burrow into substrates in the stream, so the very bottom area where there's a lot of like sand and mud. And you can see that the front legs are kind of modified. They're shaped kind of like a mole, very strong for digging. And they will also just filter material out of the water column, find particulate organic matter particles, as well as decaying parts of other organisms and plants, and feed on that. You can also notice that this burrowing mayfly it's moving its gills right on top of its abdomen right there. And this is what it uses to filter oxygen out of the water column. And as you can see, they're very fine, very delicate. These dobsonfly larvae also have gills underneath their abdomen. So if I can flip one over here very carefully. So you can see these little white patches, those are gills that they use to breathe. And let's see right here, if you look down on top of this one, you can see that it's moving its gills out and in, back and forth, filtering that oxygen out of the water. So a lot of these organisms require very high oxygen concentrations in streams. And in particular, a lot of stoneflies and mayflies are used as bioindicators of water quality. So because of their sensitivity to low oxygen conditions and different pollutants in the water, their presence can indicate whether a water body is good, has good quality water, and if they're absent, it's an indication that probably there's a lot of pollutants in that stream. So different organizations in the state, such as the MPCA, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, will use these insects as bioindicators to look at water quality around the state. A lot of these organisms are also really important for food for fish. During the wintertime, not a lot of insects are active, only just a few groups. And so fish are looking for what they can eat over the wintertime. And all of these groups are going to contribute to important food resources for fish, such as trout over the wintertime. And this is something that's really important for trout enthusiasts. So if you're interested in fishing or know of someone who is, it's good to learn a little bit about aquatic insects, because a lot of times fishermen will tie their lures and make their lures look like different aquatic insects that are active and emerging in order to target those insects that are active and be able to catch the most fish. So we talked a little bit about food webs, and now I just want to go into a little bit more detail on winter food webs and how food webs change over different seasons. So as we know, in the fall, the sunlight is starting to get reduced, starts to get colder, and then we have shorter daylight. The days get shorter, and this reduces primary production or production of algae and different plants. So the organisms that will feed on those, such as scrapers, will still be active over the winter time, but they will most likely go into some form of dormancy and rest while there is less of that plant material available for them to eat. But one group that becomes really important over the wintertime are those detritivores or consumers, the collector-gatherers and collector-filterers. These will be eating dead and decaying organic material that's flowing throughout the stream throughout the wintertime and breaking that down. And then, of course, we have predators that are active year-round. And specifically in the fall, we have a huge influx of leaves getting dropped into streams, and this will lead to a lot of leaf material for shredders to feed on. And this will also create leaf packs. And we kind of have a leaf pack in this tub over here. So this, when this falls into streams in the wintertime, it will create these mats that will have dead and decaying leaves, really great for shredders and scrapers to eat. And then also organisms will swim into these and hide in these leaf packs and overwinter in a lot of them. And even as you can see here, a lot of the insects are kind of loving to just swim back into this little leaf pack we have right here and take shelter in there. So with that, I think now we'll go into the Q&A. If you have any questions, we'll kind of wait for those to come in if you have any. One question that I get a lot is, what do we still not know about aquatic insects? And there are a lot of things we still don't really know. There are a lot of species that are still undescribed. So that's really exciting. If you're studying these, you might be able to put a name to a new species, which is really cool. We also don't really know a lot about their biology. A lot of these insects, if they go through complete metamorphosis, they have that cocoon or pupal stage. And a lot of times we don't know where they actually have that stage. Is it in the water? Is it underneath the soil at the bottom of the stream, in that bottom stream area? Or is it in the stream banks? So there's like a lot of unanswered questions just about the basic life history of some of these insects. So again, feel free to put any questions that you may have in the chat. One question I get a lot with my work as well, since I study cold adapted insects, is how cold how cold can temperatures get before these insects die, or like what temperatures are they adapted to? And it kind of depends on the different insects. There are some insects that can survive really, really cold temperatures way below zero. And they do this by doing something called supercooling. And this involves the production of different compounds or proteins in their body fluids that help, basically they act like antifreeze, and they lower the freezing point of the body fluids below the point of ice formation. There are also different compounds that different insects can produce called ice nucleating agents. And this is just a really fancy word for different proteins and compounds that are involved in controlling where ice forms in the insect body so that it doesn't damage tissues. So this is all something I'm sure a lot of us wish we had over the winter time in helping us to be able to deal with the cold a little bit better. But that's something that these insects have in order to deal with the cold and be active. We have a question in the chat.
So from Mrs. Paulson's class in Maple Lake, are there any pollinator species that you have an example of?
Thank you so much for that question from Mrs. Paulson's class from Maple Lake. The question was, do we have here any pollinator sample or pollinator examples? So I don't have any pollinator examples here right now, but there are a family of aquatic insects called caddisflies. These are in the order Trichoptera, and these are actually closely related to butterflies and moths, so pretty closely related to some pollinators that we would be familiar with. And They have been known to fly around vegetation near streams as well. Just wait a little bit for more questions if you have any. So one question I also get as an entomologist, just some general career-related questions. Can someone study insects for a living? So this is something I wasn't really sure of when I was a student. I kind of thought insects were cool and it's just something you looked at or was interested in as a hobby. But you actually can take very detailed courses in college on insect biology, and there is even a whole field of entomology. You can get your degree in entomology, as I have done, and this is the field of insect science, and it spans everything from pest management to aquatic insects, like what I study. And there are very different fields you can go into with this. You can study insects in an agricultural kind of setting with crop pests, like pests of corn, in a forestry setting, pests of different tree species. And for me, I study it more in a conservation kind of context where I'm looking at how insects are used in terms of looking at water quality as well as maintaining ecosystems and diets for other organisms like fish and things like that.
Can you talk about how these guys are predators? Like the process, like they.
Yeah. So these dobson fly larvae will grab their prey. So they have these mouth parts. If I pick one, he'll probably like be a little bit mad. So you can see they have these like pinching mouth parts. They actually tend to be longer than this and very pointed, but we have kind of clipped the ends just for safety for handling these. These are going to be used for some of our outreach events, and we don't want people to get poked necessarily, but they can still feed even without those pointy ends, but they usually have much larger pinchers at the end of their mouth. They will grab onto prey and then use their pinchers kind of, they'll take each side of their pinchers and then kind of like poke the insect with it, hold it in place, and then start feeding on it. So yeah, but these are very voracious predators. And we have another question in the chat.
So from Mrs. Paulson's class in Maple Lake, student named Adam asked, are there some different ranges for cold tolerance for some of these insects?
Thanks, Adam, from Maple Lake, Mrs. Paulson's class, for your question. The question was, are there different ranges of cold tolerance for some of these insects? Yes, there are. Different species and different groups of insects have different ranges. So for example, the insects that I studied with chironomids, there's the most cold adapted winter group can withstand temperatures down to like negative 20 degrees Celsius, which is really cold. It's 0 degrees Celsius, it's freezing in the Celsius scale. And other groups might be a little bit higher than that. So there are some insects that can only survive around freezing, maybe a little bit lower, while others can survive even lower than that. And interestingly, there are also groups of aquatic insects that are alive in Antarctica. So this is and these are part of the different species of midges, and they are actually the most southern polar insect in the globe. Thank you so much for watching this webinar on macroinvertebrates. I hope you really enjoy learning about aquatic insects as well as careers in entomology, what entomologists do, and different opportunities that you can participate in. If you have any further questions or want to learn more, you can follow up with us on bugsbelowzero.com.